The crystal wine glasses made a soft clinking sound as my sister Lyra lifted her hand. Everyone looked at her like they always did. "Big news, everyone," she said, her smile shining like the sun. She looked around the dining table where Mom and Dad sat, their forks hovering in the air. "I got called for an interview at Sterling Enterprises. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it?" My mother gasped in surprise and happiness, almost dropping her fork. Sterling Enterprises was the biggest tech company in the whole city. And Lyra, tossing her shiny, perfectly styled hair like she always did, was about to get a senior marketing director job. They had asked for her personally. Everything always seemed so easy for Lyra. Perfect grades without studying, amazing jobs without even trying, and always getting praise from our parents. I quietly pushed my food around on my plate, hoping no one would notice me. But in this family, I was never allowed to hide. They always compared me to Lyra. "Isn't that wonderful?" my mom said, smiling. "Now that's a real career path." Then she turned to me, her smile sharpening. "You should ask Lyra for advice, Aurelia. Maybe she can help you find something better. Better than what I was doing," she meant. Better than my consulting work, which they always said wasn't a real job. Better than running my own company. I tried to stay calm. "I'm doing fine, Mom," I said softly. But Lyra was already laughing. "Oh, please," she said. "You can't even get a real job. How long are you going to pretend your little consulting thing is a real career?" My dad put down his wine glass. "Lyra has a point, Aurelia. You're 32. It's time to get serious about your future." I held my fork tight, thinking about all the contracts on my desk, the deals I was working on, the company I had built while they were busy doubting me. My business was doing very well. I started to explain, but Lyra interrupted. "Business? Please. You work from your apartment and barely make enough to pay rent. Meanwhile, I'm about to be a senior director at Sterling. Did I mention the salary? Base pay is $250,000 plus bonuses." Mom nearly fainted with excitement. Dad looked so proud. I thought about my company's latest report and had to stop myself from laughing. "When's the interview?" I asked, trying to sound calm. "Monday morning," Lyra replied smugly. "Not that it matters. The job is practically mine. The CEO wants to meet me personally." I remembered the stack of papers on my desk, the ones with her application. HR had even sent them to me with a note, another entitled candidate with an inflated ego. "You're the boss." "Well, good luck," I thought. "Good luck," I said, standing up. "I should get going. Early meeting tomorrow." Lyra snickered. "What? Did someone finally agree to buy something from you?" Mom sighed. "When are you going to stop this silly independent phase? Your father could have gotten you a proper job years ago." I thought about the nameplate on my office door. It read, Aurelia Vale, CEO, Sterling Enterprises. That was my company now. "Maybe it is time for a change," I said, gathering my things. They probably thought I was finally giving up. They had no idea what was coming. As I drove home to my fancy apartment, not that they knew I could even afford one, I thought about how we got here. 10 years ago, when I finished my MBA, Lyra was already the star of the family. She climbed the corporate ladder while I quietly studied markets and business strategies. When I told them I was starting my own consulting company, they laughed. When I got my first big client, they said it was luck. When I started buying struggling companies and making them successful, they barely noticed. 5 years ago, I made my biggest move. I secretly bought Sterling Enterprises using tricky ways with shell companies and investments. The old CEO was ready to retire, and I had planned everything carefully. I even changed my professional name to Aurelia Vale, my mom's maiden name, so my family wouldn't notice. I rebuilt Sterling into a giant tech company. And my family? Still praising Lyra for small things, not realizing their unsuccessful daughter was now one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. My phone buzzed. A text from Lyra. "You should really come to the Sterling building sometime. See what a real company looks like. I'll give you a tour after I get the job." I smiled, thinking of my corner office on the top floor. The one Lyra had been dreaming about in her application letter. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. At my apartment, I looked at Lyra's resume again. On paper, it looked good. But I knew the truth. Half of her achievements were exaggerated, some were lies, and the rest were team projects she took credit for. Lyra was always good at pretending she was perfect. Tomorrow, she will see that pretending isn't enough. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mom. "Darling, don't feel bad seeing Lyra's success. Let your father make some calls." It's not too late to start a real career. I put the phone down without answering and went to my home office. The walls were covered in business magazines with Sterling's success. One headline said, Aurelia Vale, the unseen power player changing the industry. My family had spent years telling me I wasn't good enough. Tomorrow, they would see I was more than good enough. I sat at my desk and emailed HR. Please schedule Ms. Lyra Vale's interview in my office at 9 a.m. sharp. Make sure she waits in the lobby at least 30 minutes before coming up. A little dramatic, but after years of her condescension, I deserved it. I spent the rest of the evening checking company reports and finishing my plans. This Sunday felt different. Tomorrow, everything will change. Before bed, I saw myself in the mirror. I didn't look like the timid daughter my family still thought I was. My suits fit perfectly. I looked powerful. Tomorrow, they will finally see me. I couldn't wait. Monday morning came with excitement. I rode my private elevator to the top floor of Sterling Enterprises. My suit was perfect. My heels clicked loudly on the marble floor. Good morning, Miss Mitchell, my assistant Maris said with a smile. Your 9 a.m. appointment is here early. She's been waiting in the lobby for 20 minutes, insisting the CEO asked for her personally. I checked my watch. Let her wait another 10 minutes. How's she doing? I asked. Maris laughed. She's had coffee 3 times, name-dropped lots of people, and told the receptionist her sister is a nobody who can't get a proper job. Typical Lyra. I smiled. She was too busy talking about herself to notice the magazine covers with my picture. My photo was right above the reception desk. But she wouldn't see it. Maris told me more about Lyra. Half of her resume was exaggerated, some was lies, and the rest were group projects she took credit for. I nodded, remembering high school. I glanced around my office. The walls were lined with books about business, economics, and technology. Awards and plaques from conferences sparkled in the sunlight coming through the tall windows. Outside, the city stretched for miles, and my corner office offered the best view in the whole building. I had worked hard for this, and now Lyra was about to walk into it thinking she was the one in charge. At exactly 9 a.m., Maris announced, Ms. Vale, please come in. Lyra strutted into the office, her heels clicking. She had her perfect smile, hair flawless, and her posture straight as a ruler. She thought she was going to impress me. Good morning, Lyra, I said calmly, sitting behind my desk. Thank you for coming. She looked around quickly, noticing the fancy furniture, but not the photos of me everywhere. Thank you for seeing me, Ms. Mitchell. I'm very excited about this opportunity. Of course, I said, smiling. Please have a seat. Lyra sat down, crossing her legs elegantly. She started talking immediately, listing all her supposed accomplishments, her great ideas for Sterling, and how perfect she would be for the job. I listened quietly, nodding politely. Maris brought in the folders I had prepared with all her exaggerated claims checked and corrected. When she finished, I spoke softly, almost friendly. Lyra, I have looked over your resume carefully. I also know a lot about Sterling Enterprises and how it operates. Some of the things you listed here are not entirely accurate, some are exaggerations, and some are projects where you did not contribute as much as you claimed. Lyra's smile faltered. I don't understand, she said. I leaned forward slightly. You see, Sterling Enterprises is not just a company. It's a company I built from the ground up. I am the CEO. And you are sitting in my office, in the building I transformed into the success it is today. Her face went pale. But, I thought. Yes, I said calmly, letting the words sink in. Tomorrow you may have a great resume on paper, but here we value real work, real achievements, and honesty. I am sorry, Lyra, but the job is not yours. It belongs to someone who has truly earned it. Lyra tried to speak, but no words came out. She had never seen this side of me before. The timid, quiet daughter she used to mock had become a powerful woman in control of one of the biggest companies in the city. I smiled, standing up. Thank you for coming, Lyra. I wish you luck in your future endeavors. She stood up too, her face red and flustered. I'll, she stammered, then turned and left the office without another word. I sat back in my chair, smiling. Finally, my family's favorite star had learned a lesson. Being loud and showing off doesn't make you the best. Hard work, patience, and real achievements do. Maris came in and said, That was perfect, Ms. Mitchell. She didn't even see it coming. No, I said, leaning back. She never does. I looked out the window at the city below, thinking of all the years I had worked quietly, building my empire while everyone else ignored me. Tomorrow, I will go to my family's house and let them know. Lyra may have thought she was better than me, But now, I was the one holding the power. And she would never forget it. The sun was shining, the city was alive, and I felt unstoppable. Remember when she won that science fair? The project that you actually built while she was at cheerleading practice? Yes, that very same project. I sat down behind my big, shiny desk and adjusted my nameplate slightly, making sure it looked perfect. Send her up at 9 a.m. exactly, I said quietly but firmly. And to my assistant Maris, I said, Maris, make sure the security team is recording the lobby and the elevator cameras. I want to remember this moment. It's very important. At exactly 9 a.m., my office phone buzzed. Miss Vale is here for her interview, Maris said in a calm and polite voice. Send her in, I said, keeping my voice calm. The door opened and Lyra walked in. She moved as if she already owned the place. She wore a fancy suit that was a little too bright and flashy. She looked confident, almost too confident, and she smiled in that way that made it clear she thought she was the smartest person in the room. But when she saw me sitting behind the CEO's desk, her face changed. The color drained right out of her cheeks. Aurelia, she stammered, frozen in the doorway. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice shaking a little. Good morning, Lyra, I said politely. Please have a seat. We have a lot to talk about regarding your application for the senior marketing director job. Lyra didn't move. She just stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But I'm supposed to meet Aurelia Vale, the CEO, she said, her voice trembling. I smiled and pointed to my nameplate. That would be me. Aurelia Vale, formerly Aurelia Vale. Though I'm not surprised you didn't make the connection. You never really noticed what I did you? Lyra sank into the chair across from me. Her perfect, calm composure started to crack. This is impossible, she whispered. You're just a consultant. You work from your apartment. I leaned back in my chair, enjoying every second of the moment. I own this building and several others. Sterling Enterprises has been my company for the past 5 years, I said calmly. I picked up her resume and opened it. Now let's talk about these accomplishments you wrote down here, I said. You can't be serious, Lyra whispered, her voice shaking. You can't be the CEO. You're nobody. I kept my voice calm, professional, and steady. Poor Aurelia, I said slowly. Can't even get a real job. Just nobody working from her apartment. Tell me, Lyra, did you ever ask what kind of consulting I did or what companies I worked with? Or were you too busy bragging about your own small achievements? Lyra flinched and looked down. I didn't, she admitted quietly. Exactly, I said. None of you did. You were all too busy thinking I would fail. Too busy making fun of me to see where I was going. I opened her file carefully, making sure she saw every page. Now, about this claim that you alone increased your department's revenue by 200% last year, I said slowly, watching her reaction. That's true, she stammered, but I could see the panic in her eyes. Interesting, I said. I pulled out another document. Here is the annual report from your company. It shows that the marketing department only increased by 30%. And according to your coworkers, that was mostly because of a campaign your junior team made. The one you rejected at first but later took credit for when it worked. Lyra's face turned from pale to red. You've been checking on me? She asked, her voice rising slightly. I investigate all potential senior executives very carefully, I said. We have very high standards at Sterling. Standards that value real achievement, not bragging. Just then my phone buzzed again. Ms. Mitchell, your parents are in the lobby. They want to see you and are very insistent, Maris said. Of course they were. Lyra had probably called them the moment she saw me. Send them up, I said calmly. I think it's time for a family meeting. Lyra shifted nervously in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. Aurelia, look, about last night, about the things I said, she began. Save it. I cut her off firmly. I don't want apologies that come from fear. I spent years listening to you make fun of me, Lyra. Now you get to see exactly who your so-called unsuccessful sister really is. The door burst open and my parents came in, their faces full of confusion, shock, and anger. Aurelia, my mother exclaimed. What is the meaning of this? Why are you in the CEO's office? Hello, Mother, I said coolly. I was just reviewing Lyra's job application. Would you like to join us? We're talking about honesty and real achievements today. My father's face turned red with anger. Stop this nonsense. You're embarrassing yourself and your sister, he shouted. I stood up slowly, letting everyone feel my authority. No, Dad. For once, you're going to listen to me. All of you, I said firmly. I pressed a button on my desk, and the wall of windows behind me turned into a giant screen. On it were graphs and charts showing Sterling's financial growth under my leadership. "Welcome to my company," I said, pointing at the screen. "The one you've been hearing about at your country club. The one Lyra wanted to work for. The one that has been making headlines while you were too busy ignoring me." They stared at the numbers, the achievements, and the empire I had built while no one was watching. "Now," I said, sitting back down, "let's talk about what really makes someone successful. Integrity or actual competence." Lyra's face turned pale. She realized this interview was about to be very, very uncomfortable. The room was completely silent as my family stared at the financial charts. 10 years of growth. Billions in acquisitions. My photo on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, and Business Weekly. "This is yours," my mother whispered, sinking into a chair. "Every bit of it," I confirmed, walking around my desk. While Lyra was bragging about her mid-level marketing jobs, I was buying and fixing struggling companies. While you thought I didn't have a real job, I was building an empire. My father, always quick to anger, spoke first. "Why didn't you tell us? Why keep this a secret?" he asked. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "I tried to tell you about my first big client, my first successful company, and other achievements," I said. "But you didn't listen. You didn't care." Lyra squirmed in her chair. "Aurelia, if we had known," she started weakly. "That's exactly the point," I said. "You only care now because of what I built, not because of who I am. You're only interested in money and power, not in being proud of me." I pressed another button on my desk. Security footage from last night's dinner appeared on the screen. Lyra's mocking voice could be heard saying, "Can't even get a real job." "Stop, Lyra, we get it," she pleaded, her face red with embarrassment. "Because I've been watching you build your career by exaggerating and taking credit for other people's work," I said. "I talked to your former coworkers and references. I know exactly how you got every single position you've ever held." My mother stood up, smoothing her designer dress nervously. "Surely we can work something out," she said. "We're family after all." "Family?" I asked, holding up Lyra's resume. "Like when Lyra took credit for my science project in high school. Or when she told everyone I dropped out of college because I started my own business instead of following the normal corporate path. That kind of family." I was young then, but I remembered everything. Lyra tried to protest weakly. "We all make mistakes." "Yes," I agreed. "And now you get to face the consequences of yours." Maris, my assistant, entered with a thick folder. "The investigation results you requested, Ms. Mitchell," she said. "Thank you," I said, opening the folder carefully. Inside were the details. Falsified achievements, stolen ideas, complaints from coworkers. I looked at Lyra. "Did you really think none of this would show up during our background check?" I asked calmly. Lyra's face went pale. "Those accusations were never proven because your daddy's lawyers stopped every investigation," she whispered. I finished for her. "But Sterling takes honesty very seriously. We check all potential executives carefully. We don't tolerate cheating, lying, or stealing credit. We make sure everyone is honest and truly talented before they join our leadership team." Lyra swallowed hard and looked down, knowing she had been caught. My dad stepped forward, his face serious like he was ready for an important business meeting. "Now, Aurelia, we should talk about this as a family," he said, trying to sound calm. I looked at him and stayed calm. "No, Dad. You lost that right last night," I said. "You lost the right to talk to me like that after what you said and did." He looked confused. I kept going. "When you sat there and let Lyra make fun of me. When you said I needed your help to find a real job. When you made it clear again that nothing I do is ever good enough for you. You lost the right to discuss this as a family." I pressed a button on my desk. The office door opened, and Thaddeus Blackwood, my chief legal officer, walked in. Thaddeus was a calm, serious man who always knew exactly what to say in situations like this. "Thaddeus," I said, "please explain to my family what happens if someone lies on a job application at Sterling Enterprises." Thaddeus adjusted his glasses. "Falsifying or lying about your credentials or experience when applying for a job, especially for an executive-level position, is very serious. It can lead to immediate rejection from the company. You could even face legal action, especially if previous employers want to pursue damages for defamation or if someone claims intellectual property theft." Lyra's face went pale. Her usual confident, superior look had completely disappeared. "You wouldn't, you can't." "Can't what?" she asked in a small, shaky voice. I asked softly, "Protect my company from someone with a history of dishonesty?" Enforce our ethical standards? Or are you suggesting I should give you special treatment just because we are family? Aurelia, please, my mother begged. Think about what this would do to our reputation, our social standing, everything we have worked for. I shook my head. No, Mom. Think about my reputation. Think about all those years of snide comments and dismissive attitudes. Think about the times I worked hard, succeeded, and yet you barely noticed. Think about the years of ignoring my achievements and pretending I was a failure. I pressed the point. Lyra's application is rejected, and I am forwarding everything we found to her current employer. They should know exactly who they are trusting with their corporate image. Honesty matters, especially at the top of a company. Lyra burst into tears, but these weren't the fake, calculated tears she used to manipulate people. These were real. They were the kind of tears you cry when you finally face the consequences of your actions, the tears of someone realizing the world does not bend to their will. Then I turned to my parents. And as for you too, I think you need to take a long, hard look at how you have treated both of your daughters. One of you praised endlessly, even when she lied. The other you dismissed, even though she was honest, hardworking, and successful. My father's face darkened. His jaw tightened and his eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Humiliating your family. No, Dad, I said firmly. I am not enjoying this. I am doing what you should have done years ago. Holding people accountable for their actions. Making sure honesty and integrity matter. Doing what a real parent should have done long ago. I walked to the window and looked out at the city below. The city I now partly owned. You know what the worst part is? If any of you had shown even a moment of genuine interest in my work, you would have known about all this. My name, my full name, has been in the business news for years. But you were too convinced of my failure to notice my success. I turned back to them. Now I have a board meeting to prepare for. Thaddeus will escort you out. Lyra, you will receive official notification of our decision in writing. I hope you take this as a chance for self-reflection and learning. Maybe finally you will understand what honesty and real work mean. My mother tried one last time. We can still be a family. We can work through this. We can fix things. I picked up a report from my desk and sat down. We will always be related, Mother. That cannot change. But being a family is not just about being related by blood. Being a family requires respect, support, and love. None of which you have shown me. They left in silence. Lyra's tears were still falling. My parents' pride and confidence had been shattered. They left looking embarrassed and small. As soon as the door closed, Maris, my assistant, came in quietly, holding a cup of coffee. Are you okay? She asked softly, her eyes full of concern. I took a deep breath and looked at the family photo I kept in my desk drawer. Not a photo of my parents, not a photo of Lyra, but a photo of my grandfather, the only person who had believed in me from the start. I smiled softly. You know what, Maris? I am okay. For the first time in years, I really am okay. Over the next few months, the family dynamics changed dramatically. Lyra's current employer started investigating her past achievements. They discovered many things that were false or exaggerated. Eventually, she had to resign from her position. She was forced to start over from the bottom. For the first time, she had to work her way up without relying on family connections or manipulation. My parents, on the other hand, stopped appearing in society pages. People noticed that they had ignored their successful, honest daughter while supporting a dishonest one. Their social standing and reputation were quietly diminished. I focused on my work, continuing to grow Sterling Enterprises into an even stronger company. The business world started buzzing about the secret CEO who had hidden her success from an unsupportive family. My story became a symbol of quiet determination winning over loud, empty bragging. People admired what I had achieved quietly, without needing attention or praise from family. 6 months later, I received a letter from Lyra. Not an email, not a text, but a handwritten letter. She apologized. She wrote that she had finally understood the value of genuine achievement. For the first time, she had to work her way up from an entry-level position. No family connections, no shortcuts. Just hard work. My parents took longer to come around, but eventually, my mother sent a similar letter. In it, she admitted that they had failed me. She asked for a chance to really know me, not as the daughter they had ignored, but as the woman I had become. I kept both letters in my desk drawer next to my grandfather's photo. Not because I was ready to forgive them completely, but because they reminded me of something very important. Success isn't about proving others wrong. Success is about proving yourself right. It is about knowing your own worth, working hard, and achieving your goals honestly. 1 year to the day after that fateful interview, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly reports. Maris came in with the latest business magazine in her hands. The cover story read, Sterling CEO Aurelia Vale, The Power of Quiet Success. The article didn't talk about family drama. It didn't mention Lyra's failed job application. It focused on what really mattered, the company I had built, the innovations we had created, and the changes we had made in the industry. That is what real success looks like, not bragging at family dinners, not inflating achievements, but building something meaningful, something lasting. They had called me worthless at a family dinner. Now I was their boss, their superior, their example of what true success looks like. And that felt better than any revenge ever could. For the first time, I felt completely proud of myself, not for getting back at anyone, but for knowing that I had worked hard, done the right thing, and stayed honest. I had built a life and a career that no one could take away from me. Maris looked at me and smiled. You've really done it, she said softly. Yes, I said, smiling back. I really have. And the best part? I didn't have to step on anyone to get here. I just had to be me, honest and hardworking. From that day on, my parents and Lyra had a lot to think about. They had to see what true effort and integrity looked like. And while I didn't rush into forgiving them, I let their letters sit on my desk. They were a reminder that people can change slowly when they are faced with the truth. I went back to my reports and my work. Sterling Enterprises continued to grow, stronger and more respected than ever. The business world continued to talk about me, not for family drama, but for real achievements. And every time I looked at my grandfather's photo, I remembered the most important lesson of all. Belief in yourself is the most powerful thing in the world. Because in the end, that is what real success looks like. Not seeking revenge, not trying to make your family see your worth, but building something meaningful, earning it honestly, and proving to yourself that you can achieve greatness. And that is exactly what I did.